Welcome to the Opposites Unite podcast,
where we discuss real estate and lifestyle topics,
break barriers,
build connections,
and find common ground.
Let's unite.
All right. Today on the podcast, we're here with my good friend, Jace Salter, with my entrepreneur with Salty Beat Studios. Jace, I've known you for a long time, man. I've seen you go through a lot of different changes, evolve. Tell me about yourself, man. Tell me what do you do with yourself nowadays?
First of all, thank you for inviting me here. I have known you for a long time. I think that's an understatement. And so what am I doing? I'm a photographer and music producer and in sales. And that's kind of like the trinity of who I am, so to speak.
I like that trinity, huh?
Yeah,
that's three things. So that's
those are the three main things, I guess you could say. I mean, that I'm into. Yeah,
you told me that your thing was passion, like your passions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of like something in your heart that you feel is strong. Like you do whatever your passion is. I mean, I've seen you with your music and your photography. Both amazing things on social media, right? I have a picture, the Dodger picture that I bought for Jaden.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Man.
Yeah, it's still hanging in his room.
I hope he likes it.
Yeah. I don't know that he's a big Dodger fan like I grew up, my dad being a Dodger fan and all, but I don't know. I invited him to a friend's Dodger game today, and he's like, eh.
So it's more of a gift from you that you thought you liked. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, well, I would love for him to love what I love, but I think it
never works like that, bro. I was always you remember in the 80s, Kung Fu theater and all that?
Yeah.
Remember we'd always watch like Kung Fu on TV?
Master
Saturday.
of the Flying Guillotine? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, bro. All
right.
And I always wanted to be in Kung Fu, when I got older, or even just as a teenager, but, mom's never, she never took me. As Danny says, I never had a dad to hold my hand at Disneyland, So I never got took to Kung Fu classes. So we just walked around, went to Payless Shoe Source and got the Kung Fu slippers. And
oh yeah, I had those.
You remember?
Yeah, oh yeah, those were. Well, I got mine from the swap meet, bro. To be honest with you, so
that's funny. And so
I had three different colors. They were black, white, and the white ones would just turn yellow after a while.
Oh yeah. But I know what you mean, man. I wanted my son to be into Kung Fu, and I put him into Taekwondo, and he wasn't doing it. So I just said, all right, we're done.
Yeah, I think
can't live our lives through them, I guess.
That's very true, man. It's very true. And we, as much as we want, what we want for them is they have to find their passion, right? And what motivates them and what drives them. But yeah, so tell me more about like your photography. How's that going? I see that you have, you go around town and you shoot some awesome footage of like LA and like the lights and stuff. And then one time I remember we went shooting studios up Grimes Canyon, and there was an earthquake that day. Do you remember?
Did you go with me?
Yeah, we were up there.
Oh,
and,
wow.
You were doing some time-lapse stuff, right?
Yeah, and long exposures and stuff.
Yeah, and it started shaking, dude.
That's right.
It was the trippiest thing. It was the trippiest day. There was some some Instagrammers that were like behind us, and they were like doing some booty shaking stuff on the street.
Yeah,
cars are coming by, like it was crazy. And then you're doing this, and then the earth starts shaking. It was weird, man. It was really, really weird.
It's probably a lot for you to take in because you're not used to being out on some piece of land, hanging off a road, and looking at some street and wondering why everyone is standing out there. And then the earthquake threw you off. It
was a lot, man. It was a trippy experience, right, to see that. And it. I guess I'm not used to it, but
I honestly forgot about that you even went with me. But so, to answer your question, yeah, photography is a passion of mine. My music was my first one, but the photography ended up being more, I think it's just like you jump into something and you enjoy it, you like it, and then, you just do it. And then the problem is when you go hard on it fast, you can get burnt out and, lose interest. But I've never really lost interest. I think I've kind of slowed down recently. But yeah, I mean, I love photography. It's just another form of expression, just like my music.
What inspired you to start photography?
I was in recording studios, as a guest in some people's studios, and it was always like bringing my GoPro in there and taking pictures of the mixing board. And I remember one time seeing a picture from on Lincoln Park's probably social media many, many years ago. I mean, a long time ago, before Chester even had passed. And they were in the studio, and they had a picture of the mixing board, and it was just the angle that he was in there. He was like sitting in there, and he had his arms on the faders, and I just was like, man, that's dope. And so when I started, it was with my GoPro, and then I was always really intrigued by the rap albums in the 80s. Remember LL Cool J, I'm Bad?
Oh, hell yeah.
Remember, he was standing on the hood of a car in front of the project with the bars, the black bars behind him in the building. And or Ice.
Was that back then with like the Puma outfit and the Kangol?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
And then or like Ice Cube's Death Certificate album with the dude on I don't know what he is, like on the bench, and he had the toe tag.
Oh yeah, it was like the Mortician's.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gurney or slab or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that was pretty. I mean, yeah, it's interesting because that hip hop, right? It was a big influence to you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've been a fan of hip hop forever. Like, grew up breakdancing in the 80s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro.
You remember those days?
Yeah.
We still every now and then have a good time at a party and think we can do it again, and then wind up going home with a busted up knee or something.
Bust out with some windmills at 50 years old. Wind up having to go home and soak in the bath. Calgon.
Yeah, take me away, man, because it's either that or the ER, dude.
Yeah, you did break, bro. I remember back in those days.
Yeah,
Renee used to pop.
Renee had more skill, or my brother Renee, he had more skills at popping than breakdancing, and I had the breakdancing and didn't have the popping. I don't know. He was skinnier,
Skinny.
he was thinner, so I think
That
skinny kind of it works better with popping, right?
Absolutely. You could tick and all that stuff,
That's funny, man. That's so what influenced you in that? So that's like your photography, right? You know what? I have seen some of your shots where you're sitting over like a big mixer board, and it's just kind of like that. I've always kind of viewed you, man, honestly, as like a producer. You know what I mean? Somebody that can create content like on a and to get really in depth is to create beats, right? Because like Salty Beats is your studio name, right?
Absolutely.
And I know that you have a family member that has a studio in, is it Salt Mines?
Salt Mine Studios, yes. Don Salter was Mesa, Arizona.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a monster studio, at least from what I can see.
Oh, that's a crazy studio, bro. He's been on Mix Magazine so many times, and I've done a lot of pictures for him for their just their sites and all their media and stuff like that. But the funny story about how I met Don, because a lot of people got a lot of cousins and family you just don't even know,
right.
on what side, especially you Latinos, it's like, I know.
Family goes on forever, man.
I don't want to throw Fernando out there on blast, but every time I talk to him, I'm talking about somebody's, oh, that's my cousin. I'm like, bro, how many cousins you got? That dude got like 400,000 cousins. So Fernando, if you're watching this, sorry, bro. I think it's funny. I like that. But I got like 3 cousins, so,
Well, I mean, I know you have family back in Midwest. I think you've seen you go back there somewhere.
Yeah. In the South.
Mine's all over the place too. But I guess depends on how far back you want to go.
Well, I mean, I met Don because back in those days, I mean, it was like the early 90s. I was like with a friend of mine, and I just barely started making beats. And I was like, man, he goes, what are you going to call yourself? I go, I don't even know. I go, I'm not even worried about that. I'm just trying to make the beats. And he goes, you got to call yourself something. And I said, I go, I don't know. I go, why don't we call it the Salt Mine? Like my beats come out of a salt mine, like, and it was like, cool, and so that was it. And then very shortly after, he goes, wait a minute. He goes, there's someone in Mesa, Arizona named the Salt Mine. And he goes, but what's the trip is he has your last name. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah, look. And I was looking at it. I think computers barely came out, so you had to look at an actual CRT monitor or something.
All right.
And so I was looking at it, and I go, yeah, I don't know him. I go, but that is interesting. And I said, well, I better call him up and, verify before I start naming myself something. And, he's already called Salt Mine. It looks pretty legit to me, much more legit to me.
Right. And, you were coming up, and he was already established.
He was already doing his thing, bro. He's recording Lil Wayne, Jonas Brothers, all kinds of people. And he's a public studio. He's not a producer. So I called him, started talking to him, and, figured out real quickly that we're related. And I was like, wow. I was like, so does that mean I can't use a salt mine? He was like, yeah. I go, man, my buddy already drew up the graphic for it too. My boy Moreno drew the graph. It was a dude coming out of the salt mine with a pick, like a big pick fork or whatever, and he had an NPC and it said salt mine. So that's one of the first graphics I have.
So maybe you got a little in your blood a little bit, man.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, definitely. It's a good response. Yeah, it's definitely in the blood. His son Justin is a music producer and engineer, all around musician, plays just about every instrument you can think. Don, he also can play instruments, and so it's definitely in the family on that side, the Salter side. So I ended up changing my name to Salty Beats.
Interesting, man. Because you know what, I think when I was watching a special on HBO with Rick Rubin, right? And like how he created all and worked with a lot of artists and helped them create their content, right? And their music and all that. And I gave you a book.
Yeah.
Because when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is Jay right here. I was like, this is Jay all day for me. Like the way I view you and your creativity, I was like, this guy can help people really, develop their stuff. And you have understanding of how the stuff works. I go in your house, man. You got all kinds of like
speakers.
I should say in your studio, right? And your studio has speakers, keyboards, like all these random things, guitars, microphones. Like it's just so much equipment. It's overwhelming to somebody that doesn't know how to like break, because it's like going into a chef's kitchen, dude. Like that has every ingredient you could imagine. Right, because that's what sound is. It's a bunch of ingredients. You got to know how to mix them together, or else you wind up with a dirt stew. You know what I mean? And that's not going to work. But like, if you know how to put it together, that's how the magic's made.
Absolutely.
And how many hours would you say you've got like sitting behind a mixer board, just sitting there trying to put something together?
I've never calculated it, but I think they say to be a professional or a pro, it's like, I forget the amount of hours.
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours.
Yeah.
I would say I would say I've approached that, or maybe even exceeded it.
Wow, that's a lot of time to be sitting there, man.
But I'm looking at it not so much as the mixing board, but just all of the equipment. I mean, going back to, like in order to get to that point, you got to start from the basics and understand what a MIDI cable is, or understand what, just certain things, like what is MIDI cables, and how to use all the equipment and the signal flow of in and out. And so, yeah, all of that definitely makes that amount of time.
So that's what I mean. Your creative process, right, has to include all that stuff. Like, where do you get inspiration on how to put that stuff together, man? Like, do you just listen to music, or does it just pop in your head randomly? Like, you're just chilling or at the grocery store, and then you're like, all of a sudden, just get some beats. You're like, ooh, that would sound really good together. Or where does it normally come from?
I think it always comes from you always feel like when you're listening to music that you like, you're inspired, and it's a combination of things. To be honest, for me, it's really what inspires me. I think it will be life. the challenges of life and the hardships and the struggles and the pains and, just all of that stuff, that's what truly motivates me. And then if I hear something, a certain beat or a certain style or something, it's like that could kind of inspire me to go into my lab and fire it up and be like, all right, let's see what comes out. But it's never to be like biting someone's style and be like, oh, okay, I heard that beat, let me mimic it and do it just like that. And that is the math, to be honest, to become successful, if that's what you're looking for, is to mimic what's already so quote unquote popular, and now they got software, they could just basically copy and paste and drag and drop. You're a producer now and you ain't even done nothing but buy some sounds online, just drag the whole file in and and put it on Instagram.
But it's nothing creative. Like you didn't come up like with that.
You didn't come up with nothing. But these cats be making money, and that's what their goal is these days, is just to make money. So it's like, that's okay with them in this generation. They don't care how it got there. They just care that the money's there.
Yeah. That's the world we live in, man. Everything's like cut out, like the human aspect of it is cut out. But I think in several things you can't do that as well. Like, because software, in my perspective, it doesn't have that ear, man. It doesn't have the ear to know. And I think you touched on something that's really big, is like the emotion that you have when you're listening to something. That's kind of like the needle that can't be taken into account, or at least I haven't seen it yet.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can't say it's going to be that way forever, where software can identify like an emotion and then taper something to that emotion, right? And how you feeling when you're dealing something, or does the computer have a mood swing,
Yeah, I think that's a great question, bro. I think that it's there already. I may not be aware of it, but I'm pretty sure it's there. I mean, no, actually it does. I've seen, like, when you're digging in some of the software that I use and, you're creating things, it could, you could choose, you could definitely choose some vibes and stuff, and it allows you to do that. And that's the problem with software. That's the digital world that we live in, is everything is now digital. Whereas I stopped probably 4 years ago. I mean, I still have my computer, but in terms of making my music, where everyone's just on a laptop only, and people make beats and they sell them and they make their money, just on a laptop, and that's it. I just got kind of grossed out with it and just said, this isn't fun. And, because of my age, I know the difference between analog gear and just using a piece of a keyboard, like a computer keyboard. So I ended up going back to analog, which is really expensive.
So you go like XLR kind of stuff, or how do you
XLR? Yeah, bro.
Everything.
Yeah, so you know what XLR is?
Well, these microphones are XLR. That's how I learned.
Yeah, XLR.
I wouldn't have known what XLR to USB. These are two different cables, but one's completely analog. And I had to learn whenever we were investing in microphones. XLR is the expensive stuff because it's the high quality stuff.
Well, it's not that it's high quality. XLR is just, it's the XLR has the grounding and the balance, and
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if high quality is the right word. It's definitely the more expensive stuff.
Well, I mean, what I mean by analog is like the samplers for hip hop. The samplers and the drum machines and stuff like that, and the mixing board that I use. It's real analog, and you can, and then you run it through analog compressors, analog EQs. Everything is actually a piece of gear. So that's why you walk in that room and you see all that stuff. All of that stuff is not needed. You could just do all that on a laptop, and if that's your thing, then do it. And I did it for years. Is
it kind of like you're working with a raw material as opposed to like a synthetic, in a sense? You know what I mean? Is that kind of, that's kind of what I'm getting at, because like you're taking a sound, like a literal, like, okay, let's just say you're taking a piano of a whatever you call that pendulum that strikes the chord,
Uh-huh.
and then it emits a sound. And if you're able to capture that with some good quality, microphones, that's like the crudest way of creating, right? I mean, you're capturing actual sound. You're not generating like a pre-recorded one, and that's, I think, the difference, man, is that you can you do that, and I don't know, man. Like I was watching something the other day, and it was a conversation with like Quentin Tarantino, and I don't know who he was talking to, man, but he was talking about shooting a gun. You know, that Baldwin, he shot that or he shot the other actor, and the actor died, right?
Yeah.
Supposed to be blanks, but like Quentin Tarantino was talking about, like, why don't they just shoot? Oh, it's Bill Maher, and shoot the gun, and or shoot it away from them, like as a safety measure, just shoot it away from them, just in case there is something in there, right? And Tarantino's like, or better yet, just say bang, or just click, and then in edit, add it in, and then even add the muscle flash, right? And he said, no, dude, he's all, you got to do it in that moment where you have that emotion, bro.
There's feeling in it. There's way more feeling in it, and that's a good way of definitely expressing, the difference between analog and digital. Is like the analog is real, you having more feeling in it, and you can, touch the gear and turn the knobs, and it has a different sound. It's warmer and, thicker and broader. That's why a lot of the songs, like, classic rock songs and stuff like that sound like the way they did, Led Zeppelin and all that stuff. All that stuff was recorded in real, in a different world, in a different time, and there was no computers back in those days, so it was all on tape.
I don't think they had the option, right? They didn't have the option. They were dealing with like straight analog because they didn't have digital.
I'm sure if digital was around, they would have said, all right, let's do it. But
yeah, well,
thank God they didn't.
I think it cuts out a lot of, things become easier to some extent, right? So you sacrifice quality for ease of use. At some point, you kind of do that, right? You kind of, I'm sure, like, even McDonald's at one point had to use a grill and a burger and, like, get ketchup and mustard and, like, make it. And now it's just like in buckets and machines and, like, so fast, and the quality sacrifice, but they still make a pretty consistent product that can sell, and you know what you're going to get, and you're not going to get sick from it, at least not usually.
Absolutely.
But you get what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? And the quality, I think, suffers to some extent, and with all that, but it does make it so that it makes it a more consistent thing that everybody can enjoy, right?
Efficiency, that's the world of digital. It's about, efficiency. And when you got people that just say, hey, we just want to get in and get out and get the job done, and, we don't really care about none of the other stuff, but it just, efficiency might be one thing, be able to do it quick, but when you really trying to capture that raw sound, shout out to my boy EA Ski, the producer. You can look at his studio. He inspires me. We talk all the time. His studio is flooded with gear, and it's all analog. And he's got every drum machine you could think of. He's got it all. But he's a well-known producer, and but he's all about analog. In fact, he calls it analog music. So, and he does well. He just produced the song, Ice Cube's newest song.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you sent me some stuff from when you were at his studios.
No, I wasn't at ESK's. He lives up in Oakland.
Oh, okay. That's somebody else then.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember it was somebody else. But, it's interesting, dude. You spend so much time in this content creation space. Developing this podcast for me has been somewhat of a challenge, right? Learning the learning curves, and I'm probably in this year and a half of actually learning how to create the space, lighting, sounds. It's a lot, dude. It's a lot for somebody. I give people props that are like professionals at this stuff and know how to like really dial it in, and the investment, and to be able to make stuff, and then at the end of the day turn something out, and it's tough, man. It's tough.
I think you're doing good, man. I'm impressed by your questions and your responses and your wittiness. So I'm impressed. Yeah, the atmosphere in here is cool. It's you got good equipment, good mics, and nice lighting, and you got a good audience, and you got good guests that come on here. So yeah, I think
Thanks,
that's
man.
good, man.
And thanks for stopping by, man. That's pretty cool. We get to interview Jace. I mean, I've always appreciated your creativity and your love for the music, man. Because I remember you and you had a group of friends that you hung around with, and you guys were like hardcore about it. You know what I mean? And you guys would argue about who was more who's
more hip hop.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And it was kind of a thing with you guys. I wouldn't understand it because to me it was like, all right, I love hip hop. Don't get me wrong, but like I wasn't going to argue with you about it. You know what I'm saying?
And that's just like, to be honest, that's just dumb. Now that I think about it, and some of them still think like that, and it's like,
well, you know what, man? I think it's
you can't think like that, man, because
but it's kind of passion, though, no?
No,
it's not passion.
No,
is it kind of what is it, infatuation or something?
No,
why would you put that?
It's just stupidity. It's just dumb. We're grown ass men. You know what? Like, what one man does is what he does, and it's like you could be passionate and moving forward. You might be wanting to do all digital, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Oh, bro, you ain't hip hop because you're not doing it on analog stuff."
Yeah.
If he wants to do it all digital, then let him do it digital. It's like for my photography, I shoot digital cameras, but I also shoot on film, an actual film camera.
Yeah, you got some Leicas, some old Leicas. I've seen them.
Yeah.
And then you've got those mirrorless cameras too at the same time,
but
right?
the mirrorless is better because, I mean, it's quicker, it's faster. It's back to the efficiency thing. But the Leica, it provides something that the other ones don't. I mean, it's really sharp, and you can't see the picture when you take it, so you don't know if it's good. So it kind of forces you to be better at your craft. And that's what the efficiency does, in my opinion, is it kind of takes away a lot of the skill set, because you can do edits in post, or you can hide a lot. And with the film cameras, you can't. It's like what you take is what you're taking. And out of 36 pictures, I might end up with 4 good ones.
Well, yeah, and like I went on a trip when I went to Italy, right? I was like a freaking.
Thanks for the invite, by the way.
Yeah, of course, bro. Yeah, I'm gonna bring you along.
In Thailand, and everywhere.
Never went to Thailand, but
where'd you go? Bora Bora. There you go.
Oh yeah, Bora Bora. But I took pictures like crazy. Like,
yeah, they were good, man.
And I'm just deleting stuff and like adding stuff. But I can imagine being out there with a camera like a Leica or something. First of all, the phones are somewhat waterproof, right?
Yeah.
And they're pretty high quality now, even on like the best iPhone, right? You can shoot some really good stuff. But back in the day, man, you had to carry around a big old clunky thing, and you got how many, 36 in a shot, in a roll?
Yeah,
how many was that?
34, 36.
Yeah, something like that, right? And then you didn't get to see it till after you took it to the photo mat and got it back. Dude, could you imagine like what would the world be like if you had to go back to that? Like, that's insane. I always reminisce, man. I probably reminisce a little too much on how the way things used to be and how they are now. But I think people don't appreciate it so much. You know what I mean? We take things for granted.
Absolutely.
Most of these things are like going to satellites and then delivering information and coming back, and people are just pissed at it. Yeah, it's not doing it fast enough, or
that's a true
or it
fact.
doesn't do it right. And I'm kind of guilty of that myself nowadays, but. It's interesting, man. It's interesting to see the technology evolve. And one thing you mentioned that was really, really, I think it's probably the most in-depth thing that you've said in my eyes so far is that the skill that you lose from having a piece of equipment that's so dialed in. It's almost like
you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. So if you're ever in a situation where you need to adjust the light or you need to catch a light, but like anything, if you're good at something and you have the best piece of equipment, the skill level will rise, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day. If you have a bad piece of equipment, you could probably bring it up to the same level that a novice on a really good piece of equipment, like you guys are pretty even on that level. And the characteristics of the analog stuff are different, dude. And so you're like, what am I trying to say? Like you're you're playing with a like a tool that cannot do that can't be replicated, because in the scope of the upper levels of being able to make it perform are not what the modern day thing is meant to replicate. It's meant to replicate the best out of, what am I trying to say, man? I feel like I'm going to a rabbit hole.
I know what you're saying.
Do you get me?
And what I'm getting out of that is, I've always said, you can have all the gear you want, but if you got no game, it doesn't make no sense. So with all the gear that we have nowadays, and all the technology, and all the gadgets, and all the widgets, and all the things that just
maybe it's the eye that I'm talking about.
It's the game. That's the game.
You got to be able to
the skill. What you bring to the table, because you can have a horrible piece of equipment, really old, decrepit, barely working, but you're good at what you do, and you elevate it. And I've seen there's a lot of really good producers with hardly any gear, and they're really dope, because it's like the gear's not making them dope, they're making it dope. And a lot of people try to compensate and say, well, if I got a better keyboard, maybe more sounds. No, in fact, I think the more stuff you have, the more plugins, the more cameras, the more everything. I feel like the more of all that stuff, the less you get inspired, and the less you dig in yourself for inspiration, and pushing yourself. So sometimes I like to limit myself to what I have, and I'll go out to do some shots, and I'll just take one camera, one lens, and that's all I get. And I force myself to get the angles, or get what I need, and to redirect my imagination.
So you essentially don't depend on the equipment to do the job for you. You force yourself by having a limited tool, right, to create, to route the content around, or what you're going to capture.
Absolutely.
Around the equipment. That's interesting.
Absolutely, because you have to be able to, if you're in a situation and you see something. I've been in it a lot of times where, I'll see somebody, that I want to take a picture of, something that's remarkable, like I say a Pulsar type of thing. That's real photography, is street photography, and you don't
Would
have.
you call it a Pulsar?
What I can't even pronounce it, Pulsar, whatever.
What's that?
But it's an award.
Oh,
but
okay. Is that like a photographer award?
Yeah, I can't even
Is
pronounce
it Pulitzer?
the word. Yeah, something like that.
All right, Pulitzer Prize. I think that's what you're saying.
Something like that. I edit this out, but anyways. But yeah, it's like, sometimes you just see something and you want to take that shot, and you're like, oh, but if I had that lens, I could do it better. Well, bro, that scene is about to be done in about 3 seconds, so you better hurry up and get that shot. And that happens all the time with me, and they say the best camera that you can have is the one that's in your hand, the one that's with you. That's why the iPhones or smartphones are so good, because they're there. You can get the picture, and boom, I've seen your pictures of the architecture. And if I had a camera, that's how I would have shot it, with the wide lens. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's an iPhone, and that's because that's all I got. But I kill the batteries out there.
That's all I got.
Honestly, probably 1,000 shots, dude. 1,000 shots. Can you imagine trying to do that with the old 36, like trying to change rolls and like make them, dude? It's just, and you take them indiscriminately. Like, you're not even like worried about it, right?
You keep going.
You just keep going and until the battery dies.
But that's the skill set that we're talking about. If you knew you had the camera with film, analog, and you had 34 pictures, you would dial in and slow down and make sure you get it right.
Right. Well, because what I do is I take 4 or 5 of them, and then move it around a little bit, and try to get it like this angle, that angle. I try to line it up to different lines and stuff, and then different settings or whatever I can, and then try to filter whatever later.
But I'm not hating on digital cameras at all. I think it's remarkable, because you can, for me, one of the biggest benefits of having a digital camera is when you're with the client and you're taking pictures, they're very self-conscious about how they look, right? Or what they're paying you for to get that look. And So you can show them. You take the picture and you turn it around and you say, how's that?
Yeah.
And
So it's like
approval.
a direct.
It's like an approval. Yes, no, okay, no, all right, let's redo it. And, most of the time they never say no because I know what they're looking for. But it's nice for me to make sure, because I want to make sure that when I leave, I'm not going to get someone saying, hey, I paid you for something. This looks like crap. That's not what I wanted.
Yeah, that's never good. Right? I mean,
weddings can be like that.
Yeah.
And I heard the brides get crazy, so I've never done weddings.
You capture special moments in people's lives, right?
Yeah.
And they just, those moments aren't going to happen again. So, like, if it's gone, I mean, it's a pretty critical job, dude. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Those moments are gone. People invest a lot into developing those moments, like, not just from a camera perspective, but like organizing and special moments. Like,
absolutely,
kids are only gonna be a certain age for a certain time, and if you capture those pictures, those are special times, man. It's a lot of responsibility, is what I'm saying.
Documentary of time,
right? Yeah, that's what we're doing, man. We're really documenting everything.
Absolutely.
And we all have our own little. I mean, I think what I like to do is I go through my phone every once in a while and I scroll back. I go back like 10 years, dude.
10 years.
You know what I mean?
A lot of scrolling.
No, I know, right? But you can just go to like years and then just go scroll 10 years and boop, and then you're in 10 years ago. And like, you can bring yourself back to what that smelled like. You can bring yourself back to who else was in that room. And then that thought of that person in that room, remember what they said. You can go back. Like, it's interesting, dude, that all this like capturing of moments, because it really does create more of a
emotions.
It brings them back. It brings you back, man.
That could be dangerous, bro.
Well, it could be, depending on the picture, right?
It could be very dangerous.
But it can be.
You start thinking, you're looking at this picture and you're thinking back, oh man.
Oh, you get all sad and stuff. Oh, dude, looking at your kids when they were smaller.
Dog, or or whatever, or whoever.
Or when your kids were small, man.
That's the way it is.
Those are cool moments. But you know what?
Yeah.
Do you want to like forget that? No.
To
be able to look back at it and like to see like some pictures of like Jaden running. I have a video of him running to elementary school, dude. I was like, I watch it every once in a while and it busts me up every time. It's kind of cool.
That's good, man.
Yeah, it is. But anyways, bro, I'm gonna get too fucking,
Yeah, you look like you're gonna cry, man.
I'm about to. It's about. No, I'm forgetting.
I know you love your family, bro. You're all about your family. I noticed that, bro. You've really, over the last few years, I mean, you've always loved your family, but I've noticed it over the last probably 2 to 5 years. Your heart for your family has really grown. What you do for your parents, your family. Your dad, take him to the Dodger game, man. I love that. It's like just everything. Like you said to me earlier today, you prioritize your time. You pencil in everything to make sure that everyone's getting a fair piece of ever.
Well, you know what? I think I want to make sure and not neglect things, right? So,
yeah.
And I'm freaking, like, you call me analytical, right? You always say I'm analytical. And like, because when I start telling you about the way that I would like recommend things, you're all like, yeah, I know, you're going to break it down in an analytical way. And I'm like, yeah, because for me, it's capturing time with these people, you know what I mean? And there's always different, I like to chop up my life into little pieces and then make sure I put a little bit of work in that week in every part to try to raise the bar on all levels and not miss
that's just
something.
How your brain works, bro. Your brain works funky like that. It's got to be
you know what, man?
Compartmentalized. Everything's got its like, I can imagine if I seen like your brain, bro, it would look like a CPU board with all these wires going everywhere, and this is that, and it's labeled, this and that, and it's.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why I don't know, I've like freaking. I don't know how many apps on my phone, right? And they're all like in different in little squares. Everybody looks at my phone. They're like, "How the hell?
I remember.
How do you find anything?" I'm like, "It's easy, dude." Because you know what? I learned this from an old broker, man, and how to like label folders.
Yeah.
Because as being a broker, you have to deal with files. You have to deal with so many things. And if you have like, say you have 10 deals going on, and everybody's throwing paperwork at you and emails and all that stuff. Not to be boring about work, but you got to be able to bring it back and then shoot it out. And the more efficient you are at that kind of stuff, the more likely you are to be successful with each one of those things,
Oh, absolutely. I think that that's definitely being organized, and that can definitely help being successful is being organized like that. And so
it made me faster, and it was a trip to watch the way that guy would work. And he would have conversations with you, man. And it was interesting because he would be like, he would pull up a screen and he would have like a Word doc.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pretty simple way to work. But he would ask you, okay, like, because we were dealing with clients, right? Clients and files. And he'd be like, okay, what about this client? And he would write down what the questions he had for you. And then he would, I was just starting, right? So like, I was like nervous about what I was going to get asked. But it was just a recap of what we had talked about the last time. And then he just shelved it. And then whenever I called him back again, he just pulled that back up. But it looked like he never forgot anything. Like anything that was important, he wrote it down. And then he organized it like alphabetically and stuff, so he can always pull me up. And he probably had, 25, 30 people on this list that were in my position. And he would talk to them all day. And by that way, we were supposed to be responsible for like so many clients, right? So he would be able to like exponentially be productive.
Exponentially. It's a great word. I like your vocabulary, man.
You like that? That's my longest word of the podcast, dude.
That's a good word, exponentially.
But like, he would be able to, I'm handling 10, he's handling 25 of me.
Yeah.
And, so all of a sudden he's got 250.
Yeah.
So like, if that's way more clients than I could handle by myself, right? And he would be able to essentially cover a lot more ground and a lot more clients, and at the end of the day, make more money.
That's true.
Yeah. So I try to learn those skills from him, and it helped me kind of reading a lot of books, man, on how to prioritize like your tasks and stuff. And oh man, I can just bore you to death with this stuff.
It's cool, bro. Like I'm always intrigued by your business and how you run it. All the way back to when I attempted to be, in real estate, and you got me hooked. You got me hyped, man. And with the vision board, I had my little Porsche on there, and all that good stuff. And I ended up paying to go to the real estate school, and got all the way down and studying for the test. And I just looked at it and said, I don't think this is me. I was
not gonna work.
I gotta go knock on people's doors on Sunday. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah,
leave apple pies at their house.
I think it's part of everybody's love for what they do, man. You gotta realize what you do. You know what? There are jobs in every part of every job that are necessary, right, and that help you succeed. But like truly, man, what I love is helping people find their house, man. Helping people, like asking them like about what their kids and like their family, and then like once they're in there, dude, and like everybody's where they gotta be and they're happy and shit. That's my like bing, like everything's worth it. Everything makes it worth it. Like whatever, all the stuff that you're describing, which honestly sucks because people hang up on you, people get mad at you, right? People are annoyed.
Well, I think I made like 2,000 calls and got a hold of one person, maybe.
Yeah, and
I thought it was I could do that. I mean, shout out to any real estate broker or agent that does that, because me being in sales, not real estate, but like as a regional sales manager or, starting off in sales, I was making cold calls, and we call it phone block day. You make, set a certain amount of, calls. But I thought I had, when you were like, yeah, just make some calls, I was like, I'm about to blow you away. Like, I've been doing this for a minute.
Yeah.
And then I get in there, you're like, how many calls you make, Jay? And I was like, oh, about, 50. Now you got to make like 10,000 calls. And I was like, what?
Well, I think
that's a lot of calls, man.
Well, you know what? One thing that you learn in time is
numbers game.
Yeah, but it's a numbers, and it's also who you're talking to, right? Like if you call people and people that know how to do what you do and have confidence in you, then it's going to be a lot easier of a call. And like my job nowadays is to pick up the phone and call people, and 90% of the time I'm just talking. I'm just talking about.
Yeah, but
like,
we were going through that software, and then experimenting, and then we were going off of what they call it, the MSA list or something.
MSA list.
Or no, not an MSA. That's
I don't remember.
I don't know.
NOD list?
Huh?
What is it? And notice the default?
Some list. had a whole bunch of phone numbers.
Well, because you get the leads from different places,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and we used to buy leads, and sometimes those leads they're bad.
Basura.
And or they're sold to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then you're the 100th person to call this person. Maybe this day, right? Just today, you're calling at 2:00, and there's dudes calling up at 7:00 in the a.m. and you're like the 100th.
Luck.
So, well, ultimately,
timing and luck.
Okay, so at what point do the people go through? Okay, who are you? What's going on? Okay, the next call, and they're like, all right, this is getting overwhelming, and then they're like, okay, screw this, I'm pissed. People are blowing me up. How did they get my number? What the hell is going on? And then at some point at the end, they're like, you know what? I need this service, And
Yeah.
I need this service, and I probably should talk to one of these people. And then whoever managed to connect in there is the one that's going to get the work, right?
Man,
ultimately.
That's like my brain is on crack when I hearing all that. I'm just like, when you walked into my studio room, you seen all that. Mm-hmm. This is the equivalency.
Well, to be honest with you, that's not what I do either, man. It's a very brutal.
Nah, you're already up at the top of the food chain, bro.
Well, unfortunate
you
enough
paid your dues.
Yeah, but I've done a lot of that stuff too.
Absolutely.
And it does work though. That's the reality of it, right? And people think in our business, you talk to people, they say you don't really even connect with them till you talk to them 13 or 15 times.
Jeez.
That's a long time, dude.
That
where
is.
People will actually interact with you and do business with you, because after 13, 15 times, they know that you're persistent, you're consistent, you're going to be there, you're not going to go away. You tend to know their mannerisms. By then, you know if people are going to kind of vibe with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it helps me and it buys me patience whenever I'm talking to new people, like if I'm holding an open house or something, and people walk in and they're like, it's interesting to have people walk in and they act like they get really, you know what I mean? Oh my God, this guy's going to ask me 100 questions. And then because in your mind, you're thinking that, right? But then when they're walking around and you just talk to them and then they open up and they become cool. And it's and it's you knock their guard down, you know what I mean? And they're like, hey, this dude's pretty cool. And it's and I've learned if people want to buy something, they're going to let me know and just kind of be chill about it. And it tends to be more successful than trying to be, freaking people out. Yeah. How do you like sales? I mean, that's your, what do you, like that, huh?
Sales is tough, man. Sales is tough. I mean, it's
it's more the job.
It's, it's not my passion. I'm good at it. Because I'm an extrovert and I could read people well, and I think it fits me very well, my personality. So, I'm all right with that, but, sales is it's a daily grind, and I'm okay with that. But the problem that I find that is it just depends on what type of sales you're in. First of all, sales is just a word. What kind of sales? And so it's when you're dealing with high level sales, there's a lot of pressure. And it's you got to perform constantly, and it's always never enough for corporations. Mr. Up on the top. He just
Mr. Bottom Line.
Mr. Bottom Line. He's on his yacht and you're not, and so he's he got there for a reason, and it ain't because he's done what you're doing. It's because he had some money and he made a company and put you on the street to go, put fuel in his yacht. But companies are constantly restructuring and laying people off and doing all types of stuff, and so there's never certainty in sales. And I used to think that if you're a top performer, you'll always be safe, and that's not the truth. Because once Bain Capital gets involved, just run.
With what capital?
Bain Capital Investment Group.
What's that one?
If they ever come around, just run. Don't even,
Is that Bain Capital? I don't know. It sounds like something out of Batman.
Bain Capital. Surprised you never heard of them.
No, man.
Investment
I think
groups?
it's Bain. Isn't one of the
BAIN Investments? Yeah. Anyways, it's not that important. They buy companies, and what they'll do is that in order to make them profitable, they just tell the company lay off half the force. And then once the numbers are good, it's like cooking the books. Numbers look good, great. Or we're going to put you on Wall Street and sell you now. Yeah. All right. And then,
so it's just a kind of quick turn and burn kind of
they always do
formula
that.
Stuff.
They always do that. So.
That's corporate world, man. Corporate world's kind of like a the corporate raider people. They've been around for a long time, and they do what they got to do to make companies, or to make their money. Right? That's their business.
I mean, I hate corporate America, but at the same time, it's fed me and it's done well. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship, you know.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that whole thing, man, with like wanting to be real, keeping it real. You know what I mean? It's difficult to keep it real in
very
corporate
difficult.
America.
You got to have a whole different shiny suit on doing that.
Yeah.
You know, you got to keep your social medias tucked and your whole life tucked. And then when you go doing your work, you're like this way. And you're like, that's what they want. They don't want the real you. And, you know, that's a shame because sometimes the real you is what shines. And, you know, it's difficult to, you know, fit that mold when you're working for some of these companies. And I've worked for some of these companies and where, you know, there was a lot of money that I left behind on the table because, you know, that culture wasn't for me. I didn't like the company. I didn't like the culture, how they would talk to me, treat me. Unfortunately, I'm not the type of person, you know, I like to say sometimes I can have thick skin. For the most part, I don't. Because I just won't put up with some crap, you know. It's like I don't want to hear that.
I think nowadays, man, like the you know, from what I hear about like the younger generation, is that they want that's like their number one thing, dude. They want a job where they're treated right. They want a job where they're valued, like, and what they're doing, and what they're doing is actually like it matters. You know what I mean? You're not just another number in the books. And like
absolutely,
that's kind of like the biggest thing, right? I think at the end of the day, because we all want to be, I mean, for me, I feel very entrepreneurial in what I do, right? We have to go, like, you know, people, we don't get paid until the deal closes, right? So you better figure out how to do it right.
Quick.
Yeah, and that's in 18 years in the game, like, you know what I mean? That's how quick it takes to be good at your craft, you know? So like in the meantime, it's tough. So like, anyways, where was I going with that, man? Like being good at what you do, right? I think that's ultimately where I was going with that, and enjoying it, and keeping it real, and like being able to say what you're thinking without having to bite your tongue, because we're in a very customer service based industry, and when people act very selfish, what do?
Yeah, you can't completely just.
You can't just tell them how you feel.
No, you gotta, you know, as the good book says, be all things to all men, and that's kind of how
be all things to all men.
Yeah, so you know, it's in the Bible, and what it's talking about is, you know, you got to be able to, if you're in a situation and you know, where you walk and you got to know your audience, in other words, and so you have to be a chameleon. You got to be able to not just be like, oh, this is just who I am, and if you don't like it, then you know, forget you. That can't be the attitude. So if I go hang out with Ever, and you know, and I read The Room, and you know, maybe more conservative, and you know, laid back, you know, or whatever the case is, but then I maybe go, let's just say, with Albert, you know, he's a little different. So it's like you kind of adjust yourself to the room and the temperature, you know, and so you got to be all things to all men.
Well, you know, I think I've studied a lot about like personality traits, right? And people have certain characteristics that make them who they are, and not to shoehorn people into who they are, but like people tend to be more extrovert, tend to be more introverts, tend to be more like analytical. Some people don't care about the facts; they just want to know about how it feels, and like, you know, they focus on certain parts. And if you're able to recognize these things, then you essentially can cater whatever you're trying to relay to them, right? And True. This is where I think it becomes either manipulative or it becomes creative, right? Is your intention. If your intent is to help them, then, and you're clear about, and you're using these, because that's what I view as like emotional intelligence, right? If you're able to view these characteristics in people and be able to taper your delivery to that, and with the goal of helping them, because some people, even though you're trying to help them, right? You walk up to people, you try to help them, because you did it wrong, you didn't take any of that into consideration. Yeah, they shut you down.
Yeah, they do. They shut you down quick.
Right?
Yep, that's very true.
So being able to capture that, man, is a big deal. And learning about that has helped me a lot. I mean, like, what was it? Jim Collins' book, something about a bus. Something about. Have you ever read that book?
No.
It's a corporate America book, man. But it's about like identifying, putting people in the right role, right? So you have to be able to read the people and then know that they're in the right seat, because an analytical in the wrong seat, like you put a person that's an introvert and you give them a sales job to go out and talk to people,
they're gonna fail.
They're gonna fail, or if they do well, it's not going to be a long time. They're going to burn out.
Oh yeah.
Because they're going against the grain.
Yeah.
As opposed to you trying to put somebody who's analytical or like not analytical but yet outgoing. Because you ever meet people and they're just really successful, but you feel like they don't do much?
Yeah.
Like they don't do much, but you know what? They're really successful. What is it? They talk. They think, and they're in their.
They think and they talk and they make action. You know?
And they make people feel good, make connections, find value in people, how to deliver that value, and then make those people happy with what the results are. But then they have to know how to connect with other people that can deliver the what they're trying to deliver, so they don't really have to do much. But that connection is so valuable in today's world, and this is why sales is what I think what's what I do. You know what I mean?
The most important thing apart about sales that I've learned is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right?
Well, I think that's the connection, right? But like, and I think that relays back into, and that's almost like from the person that's getting, that's getting analyzed, right? And getting read, their perspective on it. Like, if this person is just trying to read me to get something out of me, you know what I mean? That's how you make me feel, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you make me feel that way, like the only reason you want to talk to me is because you want something out of me. But as opposed to the difference is if like, motives. Hey, look, this person's trying to help me. Like, they know what I want to do because I told them, right? And they connected with me and they told me, listen, I know how to help you. Let me help you. And if that's those two feelings are so polar opposite that if you can work in one space versus the other, like, and better yet, if you work in one space, you're gonna just run into walls.
Yeah, I like what you said. In fact, I have to answer something to someone, and I think that response is really, really key. You know, you're not trying to take, but you're trying to give.
Right.
You know,
and that's the key. But if you're always worried about yourself, like people always ask, me about what I'm getting out of something. Sometimes I help people do, like, I had a young couple, probably beginning of the year, and she was pregnant and he was young, and this guy was working like all day, all night. And I met him at a property, and they were a nephew of one of my clients, right? And I met him at the property, and then like I was like, cool, let me work this out for you. I'm gonna work it out for you. I talked to the landlord and got them because they were just starting, dude. You know what I mean? And I was like, I quickly realized that I wasn't gonna make any money, right?
So then you wanted to bounce.
No,
but
I didn't.
But you didn't, because you knew
that they needed
help. The long game, and why you were really truly there.
And they asked me, they go, what? Let me pay you. And I said, no, you're not gonna pay me, because you know what? I knew they were barely able to afford what they were doing here. I'm like, I'm not taking your money, but like,
those are seeds that you planted that later on in life, maybe now you reap.
Yeah.
You know?
So what I told them, this is what I told her, because she asked me. She was the one that asked me, and she said, and I told her, like, listen, when you get to the point where you want to buy a house, call me. That's all I ask for you. Or if you know somebody that wants to buy a house, have them come to me, because I will help them the same way. And that's just the way it goes down. You know what I mean?
I just got one question.
Did
you drop off an apple on the front porch?
No, man, I didn't make any. Like I wish them the best. And it's just helping people, man. And you help people, and it does feel good to help people. It's a little,
absolutely.
You know what? It's a little selfish too, right? Because you help people and you get that, and you get some endorphins or something.
Yeah, I mean, as long as your motive is to truly for them, and not for you. But there's always a little bit of a motive, behind something. It doesn't mean that you're bad, but as long as your motive is pure and your intentions are not to hurt anyone, or take from someone, but to give. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
You know why I got into the real estate business? Because I looked at it like I'm dealing with such big things that I can do a little bit and do well.
Yeah.
And do enough. And do enough. And in time, it's just become more and more and more, because it's very easy for me to help people because they don't know. They haven't done this. I mean, people go into a transaction, they don't know. They don't know what's next. They're too scared to even go out and like look at a house because they just don't know.
Yeah.
So you give them, I have these like long 2-hour meetings with them, and I like PowerPoint presentation them to death. And sometimes it's like, what do you call it?
30 pages on a PowerPoint?
Dude, it is. It's a lot. Bro. But at the end of the day, you gotta
just keep it like condensed to like 2 pages.
It is. No, it's not 2 pages. It's more than that. But because it has to be, dude. Because otherwise, it's somewhat irresponsible to not educate people. Some people will be like, okay. Some people are like ask you questions 4 or 5 hours, dude. Seriously.
Wow.
And I don't even realize it because I kind of like dig this stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying? I dig it, so I'm like, oh yeah, like I just throw up.
In my industry, bro, I've done that. I've shown up to sales presentations and meetings with the PowerPoint that had like 50, a deck that had like 50 pages, and they're just sitting there staring, looking at their clock, and just looking at you, and you're like, yeah, I gotta get to the bottom of this one and keep going, and they're like, nah, man. And I learned after that keep it short, condensed, powerful with pictures and, maybe video or audio and, very impactful things. And people get more out of that. You retain their attention.
Yeah. I think I've found that like
people clock out.
I know. And I'd say it's reading the person, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's not listening to what you're saying and not like asking you questions about what you're talking about.
Sure.
If you keep freaking pounding them with information, you're just dumb. You're just dumb. At that point, you're seriously like somebody's like start passing out on you, dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? You're not reading the room right. You're like looking at it and going, oh crap, like, oh, this person's falling asleep. Listen, let's talk about, how about we just run through this, okay? I'm going to just read the top lines. You let me know what
you just speak my language.
Yeah.
And while you're at it, put an espresso machine in this damn podcast room because, dudes be falling asleep in here. I'm like,
it's nice.
It would be dope to have one in here. It really would be.
What, a podcast? We have one outside, dude.
No, but right here, little French coffee.
You want a French press?
No, I think it would be kind of fun to have one in here.
Well, I have one at home, dude. I can bring it next time if you want to.
No, I mean in the corner,
You ain't passing out on me, are you?
Yes. No, I'm all right. I'm cool. I'm just messing with you.
All right.
I just visualized some coffee for a moment.
All right. Well, coffee's good, dude. I love coffee. I drink freaking French press coffee. That's
See?
my thing.
I hit it.
But I drink in the morning.
All right.
It's not morning now.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. Okay. Time's flying. Did you know what? Well, I think what I wanted to wrap up with you, man, is like, thanks for coming, by the way, again.
My pleasure. I've been wondering. I see Mario cool on here, like 40 posts of Mario, and I'm like, I can't even get one. like,
well, you know what
Frank
happens
in
is
here, and I can't even
these are like conversations that are hours long, dude. Like how long we've been on this, right? And then
chopped it up.
Then the content gets created and gets chopped up into little pieces, so you wind up with a lot of it, and then it just gets sent out over long periods of time. That's kind of the way. That's the way the social media thing works.
They don't want to sit and watch an hour-long video.
No, man. Nowadays, it's just like, give me 15, 30 seconds.
It truly
is. If it's really good, I'll give me 3 minutes.
That is
like,
really.
You better not bore me to death, because I'll just change it.
No, that is a true
just
statement.
Just a little swipe and you're gone, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping we can get some good content out of this, man. I like the that we touched on that corporate world and the sales that you've always been really successful in, and something that I'm looking forward to you being able to hopefully we can get some content that you can put out there, man, to like promote your success in that space. Thanks for tuning into the Opposites Unite podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to leave a comment for a chance to get a shout out in our next video. See you next time.